Art-Centric Podcast with Rafi and Klee.
Hola, you amazing artist. It's Rafi.
And Klee.
And today we're going to be talking about where it is that we find our art collectors. This is from a question that we got, and I feel like we had either done a podcast or we've probably done several videos on where it is that we find our art collectors. But I thought it would be a good thing to retouch because we actually got several questions over the last 2 weeks about so where is it that you find these elusive art collectors and where are they? And unfortunately the answer is not going to be as exciting. There isn't some secret place that you could go under a bridge and pay a toll, and then next thing you know you're led into a room with a bunch of art collectors. It just doesn't work that way.
These art collectors were carefully selected for you.
Yes, indeed. And for anybody that's listening to this, we are here with our amazing Rogue artist family. They are here with us to always give their insight and brilliance into any of the subjects that we're talking about.
Yep. So they're going to be chiming in with their questions or comments, and we're going to be reading them, so you'll be able to hear what those are.
That's right. So we have Ginny here. Hi, Ginny. We have several of the Rogues here. She just came in. Hiya, but on another subject. Yeah, okay.
Hi, Zara. Yeah, thank you, Rogue fam, for being here with us. So let's get into this.
Yeah, let's get into it. So I thought what would be really cool is to talk about this in almost like, what is that called? A chronological timeline of how it was that we met our art collectors. Our most loyal art collectors is what we're talking about, not just random art collectors.
Because you find them at the store, and you find them at the street, and you find them at the library, and a meet and greet, and you find them at your job, and you find them at...
and you find them at the door, and hopefully you don't find them laying on the floor.
If you help them off the floor, then they might collect your art. If you're extra nice, then you might be able to start an art collector.
Yeah. All right,
we just train wrecked.
We just train wrecked. Sarah said, go under a bridge and find the troll.
I mean... That's one way to do it.
I mean, honestly, I think we want to avoid trolls.
If you find a well-connected troll, then perhaps.
A well-connected troll. So let's go back to the beginning, the very beginning.
In the beginning.
When we were at the flea market where we started our career, in case anybody out there listening doesn't know, Klee and I, when we first got into the new town that we were in, none of the art galleries were, basically the art galleries would take one look at us and they're like, no.
Basically they said nay, but they didn't actually say nay. They said things like, we have a very long waiting list. If you'd like to add your name to that, don't call us. We'll call you.
Zara said, ooh, that's catchy.
Why, thank you.
Where we started was at the flea market. Because when we looked around and we were like, okay, we have to put our artwork out there in one way or another. Mm-hmm. And the flea market, obviously that was easy. We didn't really know the area. We didn't know about art walks. We didn't know about all the cool little art things that they were doing. So that's where we got started. And one of there's actually not one, but several of my most loyal art collectors were people that were either visiting the flea market, mm-hmm.
people
that were vending at the flea market, and just random people that would come. Sometimes we had people that would come every week just to kind of walk around and look at stuff. And little by little, we started developing relationships with them. So, if I were to say, where can you find art collectors? Okay, number one is the flea market.
Mm-hmm.
The second place, we started doing the Palafox Market. And, of course, it's kind of the same thing. You had people that would show up every week. You had other vendors at the flea market or at the Palafox Market.
Some of our regulars at the flea market followed us to the Palafox Market.
Yep.
I had one particularly extreme case where I had collectors at the flea market, but I didn't know it yet because they waited until they knew me for a couple of years and then found me at the Palafox Market.
Yeah.
And basically said, we wanted to know who you were before we started collecting.
Yeah, there's a lot of pre-qualifying. I understand that because if you're going to buy a work of art, you want to know that artist is going to continue creating, right? And it's this weird thing. Like, even if you're not collecting art because you, if you're collecting art just because you like it, you still kind of want to know that that artist is going to be creating art, that it wasn't like a one and done deal. So I think that with a lot of our art collectors, that's kind of how it went. They kept seeing us consistently at these places, so they knew like this is what we do. This is what we're going to do.
These people are in it for the long haul.
Yeah, exactly.
Esther said, my art has at times taken a huge lunge towards fantasy genre. My microscopic collector base is not going to know what to do with that, and neither do I.
You know what? Honestly, Esther, a lot of times when you jump around in the genres, and I'm a big proponent of doing that. If you feel inspired to create something, create it. The ones that don't know what to do with it, they'll just be like, oh, that's nice. It's not my thing, but it's cool that you create that. But some of them, that might be something that they like. And then that will also attract other people that might be interested in that genre.
Yeah. So you have the potential to tap into multiple collector bases and experience crossover between those collector bases.
Exactly.
Rachel said that's so old school. Poor Clee. Actually, it worked out really well because they became huge collectors of my work. And I mean, they have a pretty epic Clee collection.
They do have an epic Clee collection.
And they've become good friends as well. So it was okay that it went that way.
I think that's important, though, how you said they became good friends as well.
Yeah.
A lot. And I mean, probably about 98% of the people that collect our art have become good friends.
Yeah, and it doesn't always work in reverse. That's the phenomenon, is your friends that you start off with when you start your art career don't often become your collectors. They sometimes do. But oftentimes your collectors will become your friends.
Yes.
Because the art is a connecting point. So usually when you find someone who gets your art and resonates with it, then you also have found someone that you can connect with on an emotional and mental level.
Indeed. Ariane said, don't put limitations on your art and your experimentation. And I absolutely agree. That's why I think, like, if you are going to go into a fantasy genre and do that, if you're going to do landscapes, if you're going to do pet portraits, if you're going to do figurative, if you're going to do abstracts, and it's something that you want to do, then definitely do it, because there are people out there that are going to like the different things. There are people that there's not going to be much crossover there, but that's the biggest thing for me, is like, a lot of people, there are people out there that will say, always stick to one niche because you don't want to confuse the market. And I'm like, people are not that I've never gone somewhere and saw more, different like abstracts and figurative in one booth and then be like, oh my God, I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. Like, it's ridiculous. People don't get confused that easily.
Kelly said, being somewhere with a tent and a table can be very scary. How do you get past the fear? Well, in my mind, you have two choices. You can, avoid it altogether and find other ways to put your art out there, because the reality is that there are many other ways to put your art out there. But if that's something that you want to do, the sad truth is that the way to get over the fear is to do it a lot.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the only answer that we ever have for anybody that's like, how do I get over the fear of doing ... doing more shows, putting myself out there? And really, it's just doing it.
You know what? One thing that really does help, though, is to partner with someone, bring a friend out there with you, not only to help you, but to have a good time with. Because if you're having a good time laughing with somebody that you're there with, you're going to get over the fear a lot quicker.
Indeed.
Because then that person can help you come out of your shell.
Yeah. And understand, like, I think too, like, if you're setting up a booth or you're setting up a table and you have your artwork there and you know that you're going to be talking about your artwork, it could be really scary if you're like pre-paving this, like, oh, this is going to be terrifying. If you're going into it knowing this is a fear of mine, I'm going to challenge myself to do this.
Yep.
And you go into it knowing, like, this is a challenge. And yes, I might have moments where I freak out a little bit. I might have moments where I'm shaking, or I get cold sweats, or I feel my ears turn red. it's understanding like, yes, all these things might happen, but it's okay because it's my first time, my second time, my third time, my fourth time, whatever time it is. Till this day, there are times where like during an interaction, I have to remind myself when my face is getting all red or something like that.
Or your ears are red, or you've got hives here.
Yeah, because you said something that you're like, oh shit, I just said, and then your stick man runs away with it and is like, oh, you totally failed. You did this thing wrong. You said this wrong or whatever. And then being able to recover from that. And I think honestly, one of the things that Clea had told me with playing music, because you guys know, or if anybody that's listening to this, I'm really great now at putting myself out there with my art because I've done it. I've done it for over a decade, right? It was terrifying in the beginning, but I'm much more comfortable with it now. But the reason is for the same reason that putting my music out there, getting on stage terrifies me, but then I do it anyway, and understanding that like it's all about the recovery. You're going to mess up. You're going to stutter. You're going to say something, that you don't mean. You're going to stumble over words.
You're going to blurt out prices that you didn't mean to.
Yeah. And
you're going to lowball yourself.
And it's all work in progress. It's all work in progress.
Absolutely. One of the things that I did was just be honest. Like in the beginning, I would just tell people like, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm new at this. Because people don't expect you to be like a professional. I don't even think people would know how to answer what that is at an art show if you were to ask them. People just want like a genuine experience. They just want somebody who's relatable, who they can, not even relatable, approachable. Just be approachable. And if you're nervous, just be like, oh, I'm kind of nervous. People can relate to that.
Think about it this way. When you walk into, like, let's say you go to an art show, and this is why I love going to art shows. I love going to galleries. First off, I love looking at art. And we are patrons of art as well, So like, but it's so important to go into these things and like, just observe. And there will be times where you walk into a booth and it almost feels like you just walked into a used car salesman's booth. There are times where you will walk into a booth and the person just looks aloof and angry. There are times where you walk into a booth and the person is friendly and approachable, but not trying to sell you on something. And you gotta, when you go out and you experience these things, it's like, think to yourself, like, how is it that I want? There are people, I walk into a booth and they are clearly awkward and nervous.
And that's totally fine.
And they will still approach me. You could tell, and they'll even say like, I'm really nervous. This is my first time, whatever. And like, that honesty is so important because it makes them less nervous, understanding like, hey, I laid this out. This is, I don't do this stuff. I don't, this is my first time, or, I'm not very comfortable with this just yet. And it kind of lays out that thing and it makes it less on that person that's doing it, and then me as or anybody that goes in there, they're like, oh, okay, because we've all been through that situation. Yep. We've all been through it. We all understand. And I think that that's a really good step in setting a table out there and putting yourself out there, is just letting people know, like, yeah, I'm nervous. This is not in my comfort zone whatsoever.
But I'm doing it anyway. Yeah. Christine said, I've encouraged friends who are casual makers to try their first show with me. It helps to have someone that you can help. It takes the pressure off of you.
Yes,
and
it does.
The focus off of yourself.
Yes, it does. That is brilliant. It's brilliant going out and doing a show. Whenever we would do shows, let's say there was somebody setting up next to us, one of the other artists, and it was their first show. Mm-hmm. We would go in and visit them periodically. It's like, how's it going? And and just kind of like us having fun takes the pressure off, because a lot of people do these shows and they're there to sell. There's nothing more off-putting and stressful than, I gotta sell stuff. And like, one thing to understand is like, art is not a thing. There is no convincer in art. Either somebody connects with it and they can afford it, or they connect with it and they can't afford it at that time, and then they think about it, and eventually when they can, they'll buy it. There's no convincer. You don't have to convince someone to buy the art. So like, or even closed the sale. Like basically the moment that someone sees the art and they connect with it, they're going to think about it. They're going to buy it, whether they buy it then and there, or they buy it later, or they get something down the line, they will. But you're not there to sell art.
No, it's pointless to try to sell art. And I've said this before, if someone connects with art in a powerful way, there's almost nothing you can say to talk them out of it. And if someone doesn't connect with the art in a powerful way, there's nothing you can say to talk them into it.
No, you can't talk them into it. If they don't like it, it's not like, well, I'll give you 20% off, or I'll do this, or what can I do today to get you to walk out of my booth?
To get you into this painting.
Yeah, like, it just doesn't work that way.
Nicole wants to know, can this be done if you don't have any friends or support? I don't have any close friends. So, Nicole, one of the things that I would do when I was by myself at shows, because sometimes we were going to different shows, or sometimes I was doing a show that Rafi was not wanting to do. And basically what I would do is start chatting it up with my neighbors, the people directly next to me on either side. Now, sometimes they weren't very personable, and that was okay. And
luckily, you have more people around you than one.
most of the time, you're going to find somebody in your area at the show or market that you connect with and can have fun with, and that might develop into a potential future partnership. So look at it that way and see if there's ways that you can build those relationships. You might have to start off by yourself, but you don't have to stay there.
Yeah.
Or you might find that you're totally comfortable doing it by yourself because you can chat it up with your neighbors and help each other in that way.
Either way, Nicole, a lot of the other artists or vendors or whatever it is, whatever you decide to do, if you're doing a market or an art walk or something like that, a lot of times it's a really good place to find people that are doing what you do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that get it. Because for us, until we were doing markets and like really putting ourselves out there, a lot of the people, unless they were doing what we were doing, which was like putting yourself out there, they just didn't get it. So like doing markets and putting yourself out there is the opportunity to meet like-minded people that are doing what you do. And it's hard because, yeah, getting it started by yourself, that can be scary, but it's taking those steps to getting there that will eventually build those relationships.
Most definitely. Allie would like to know, do you recommend email subscriptions on website to get collectors? Oh, yeah. Big time.
Now, Allie, one thing that I know that we've talked about before is that, if you have a blog, that's a great way. People that want to subscribe to your content without it being, everybody's on social media or whatever. Mm-hmm. But on social media, you're going through a wall of stuff, and who knows, you might run into some crap that you don't want to see and stuff like that. So if people like you, or they like your content, they like the stuff that you're writing, they really connect with you, then they're going to want to subscribe to you, because it's almost like getting a pen pal letter.
Yeah,
every once in a while, and it's really nice to connect. Whether or not they become collectors, that's not something that not everybody that is subscribed to us
is a collector.
They may be in the future. We have some that have become collectors. What matters most there is that there is a continuing dialogue that is not that is on our website, that has to do with our people. And that's why I say, like, when you're writing a blog, make sure that you're not being salesy, make sure that you're just talking about your life as an artist and your perspective and things like that, mm-hmm. and what you do and the excitement of releasing a new collection and all that stuff.
The personal stuff, like you're talking to a friend, and I know, Allie, that you very well understand that. But yeah, definitely look over your whatever you're putting out there and see what the conversational tone is like. Even read it out loud. I think that helps to kind of get the tone of whatever your communications are. But yes, absolutely, I think it's a good idea to have a subscription.
I think it's brilliant. And anybody, I know people that have blogs that don't make it obvious for people to subscribe. They don't, like, I've gone to their blogs, I've read their blogs, it's people that I know or that I don't know, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. I would love to get an email from this person, because I get emails all the time that I delete that are shit emails because it's just some company trying to sell me something. I would love to read something that is personable. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like impossible. It's like pulling teeth. And
To find the
and I
subscribe
go
button.
on their website. I'm like, where the hell do I subscribe to this? So the other part of that is make it easy. Make it easy for people that maybe come across your stuff and they want to know more. They want to know more.
Ariane said, I think leading with honesty and admitting you're nervous or socially awkward, going back to doing the shows,
Yeah.
actually puts most people at ease. Going to see art should be relaxed and fun.
Yes,
I
I
fully
agree.
agree. And
I agree.
also, you guys, a lot of people are nervous entering your space as a patron. It can be like a vulnerable act to enter someone's art booth or their gallery space.
That's definitely one thing to realize is, you know,
They're
and
nervous.
we've thought about that because there's almost this imaginary threshold, and we've actually done a lot of like testing of that when we would do markets and things like that people you know, people, they're going to interact if they walk into your booth, into your art booth. It's almost like they're signing up for something. And you got to think of their previous experience, you know, where maybe down the way they walked into like 4 art booths and they walked in and the person is being all salesy. We've had that happen where the people are being all salesy to them, and then they walk into our booth and we're like, hello. And then they're like, I'm just here to look.
And we're like, cool.
You know, and so then we put them at ease because and it's easy for a lot of people. They would take it, it's like, God, I can't even say hello. But really, you got to think of the experience that person is having that day. And really, it's just about putting them and putting yourself at ease.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the magic ingredient.
That
guys.
is the magic ingredient.
Everybody relaxed and having a good
You
time.
just heard it here on the Rafi and Klee podcast. The magic ingredient.
It is to relax. Everett said, I'm feeling nervous about doing my first indoor show. All others have been outdoor with the 10 by 10 setup.
Yeah.
Canopy. Yep. The indoor show will be a 6-foot table setup. Any suggestions on how to set up a smaller show? So that can be a different animal for sure as far as interacting with people. Because then they're like, if you have a table set up, then you're like right up, you know, they come right up to your table. It can feel a little different. And sometimes it can feel awkward. Like,
I guess, I don't know. Any of the shows that we've done indoors, like so first off, it depends on the space. If it's a really big space, I'm fine. I don't, surprisingly, this will be very surprising for a lot of people, I don't do well in large crowds, like in small spaces.
nor do I.
So like I periodically, whenever I'm doing a show that's in a small space and maybe there's a lot of people, I have a place that every once in a while I allow myself to go, whether it's a spot outside or somewhere else that's separate from the crowd. I give myself the opportunity to go and get a breather every once in a while and then return to what I'm doing. And as far as like the setup, I try to make it as comfortable as possible. I have the walls that I've built my own show walls. So a lot of times for me personally, I'll just set those up and hang the artwork on there. And if I do have a table, then I'll have a few easels and stuff just kind of laid about. But what's most important is that there's that space, right? So I never sit behind my table. I never sit.
A lot of folks do, and
Yeah.
it can make for an awkward experience or not. But yeah, if you can, just because a venue provides you with a 6-foot table doesn't mean you're necessarily locked into doing that. We really do like to customize our space, even at indoor shows.
Yeah.
With the walls, I bring my trunk out now that I have my freestanding jewelry trunk. So we kind of set it up almost the same as if we were doing an outdoor show, just
Yeah.
minus the tent.
Yeah, because every show that we did, we hardly ever set up the same way. It wasn't like this is our setup because we didn't know where we were going to, you know, are we going to be set up somewhere where there's a dirt mound? Is there going to be a tree? Is, you know, like what can we do? So like every setup, we got very used to things moving around. And that's why like the way I design my walls, they like come apart and they do whatever. And your
They
tables
can take on several different shapes.
yeah, and your tables are different sizes and things like that. So it's just being flexible with your own setup.
Christine brought up a really good point here. She said, I try not to think about selling art at all, but rather asking questions to get to know the people who come in. Such as, are you from around here?
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. It helps break the ice, and it also helps you to genuinely get to know who you're talking with, which
Yeah.
is just like going somewhere and striking up a conversation with someone. You know, when we were first exploring our new town, we were striking up conversations with everybody, whether it was at the local cafe or it was, at the store or it was at the gas station or it was wherever. Like,
Everywhere.
we just wanted to know people.
Yeah, we wanted to know people, and like people would ask about us, and that's how they would find out that we were artists. And oh, what kind of artwork do you create? And a lot of times I'd have my phone on me, and I would have a folder in my phone with artwork to make it easily accessible, so you didn't do the thing where you're like, I don't, hold on a second, and so stuff like that. None of it was salesy. It was just like, kind of like, I want people to know. I spent so much time in my life not being an artist that I think I just wanted everyone to know that I was an artist. Like, if they asked. It wasn't like I went around, I was like, I'm an artist. Hey, I'm an artist.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, I didn't do that. But like, anytime that there was an opportunity to talk to people, and a lot of us striking up conversation, honestly, was us facing fear. Because both of us were just the idea of striking up a conversation was just absolutely terrifying.
Immensely socially awkward.
Yeah, immensely, and we failed miserably on so many times trying to strike up a conversation, or nerves would take over and stuff. But then you just you learn from that experience and you push on to the next one and the next experience, and then you get better. Till this day, we still have moments where like, the awkwardness and the nerves take over.
Most definitely. Amy said, I prepare. Try to find ways to help things that make you nervous. I bit the bullet and registered and printer as checking people out by hand made me nervous. Oh, yeah. So it could be a little detail like that.
Yeah.
Where the point of sale process makes you uncomfortable. Maybe you find the best way for yourself to do that part to make you comfortable.
And that is a really good point, Amy, because a lot of even after getting very comfortable interacting with people, just having conversation, when it came to talking price and stuff like that, then all of a sudden that's a whole new ball game of nerves that it's just practice doing it and putting yourself in those situations where you're willing to talk. Let's talk money.
I remember at one of our first fancy shows, which was the wine walk, our first wine walk that we did, I sold a piece that I was really proud of, and it had a nice price tag on it. And I remember when the couple said, "We'll take it," I said, "Really?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Really?"
Yeah, they were like, "Yes, really, we are taking it."
I opened up my Square app to take their credit card, and I could not stop shaking. And they knew I was nervous, but they also knew I was really proud of the piece that I created.
You were proud, and you let them know. You actually told them, like, I'm really nervous. Like, this is the first time that I'm selling something like this.
Something like this. Yeah. Christine said, in my experience, anyone who buys something, regardless of how small, is a potential collector if you keep in touch in some way.
Yes. And that's basically the gist of this entire podcast, is that everywhere and anywhere that you meet someone, like we went with the flea market, we went with art walks, we went with indoor shows, these are typical shows. But also, I have collectors that I met at the grocery store in the checkout line. I've met people, whenever there's that opening of dialogue, you got to remember, like, when you are having a conversation with someone and it just so happens that they've been looking for an artist, or they've been looking for something, or they want to expand their taste, the fascination, or even thinking to themselves like, man, I see all these artists on TV. I've never actually physically met an artist, and to be able to meet an artist in real life and stuff like that, those are those relationships. And that's why at the end of the day, and this is the big spoiler when it comes to this podcast, where do you find your most loyal collectors? Everywhere. Yeah. You find them everywhere. There's no special place where you can find them, and you have no idea who your next collector is. The thing is, there has to be a relationship.
And that's why it is important to be willing to talk to people and genuinely connect with them. I have, it's kind of said so much that it's cliche at this point, but you'll hear like that it's much harder for adults to make friends than it is for kids to make friends. And I call BS on that. I think the problem is that the older we get, the more we're afraid to talk to people and the more we fear judgment, especially when you're putting artwork out there
Yeah.
or doing something that makes you feel vulnerable. But it has everything to do with where you are, like emotionally.
Yeah.
If you're willing to talk to people without fear of judgment, it's no harder to make friends or to find art collectors than, how kids go about making friends.
And well, let's make something really clear. Like, there's always going to be fear of judgment,
Yeah.
right? There's always going to be the possibility that someone's going to reject you or someone's going to, not like your art or not like whatever. The difference is not building a thick skin. I don't like that. I don't like that idea of putting armor around you in order to protect your feelings, but kind of understanding that, like, oh, okay, that's just one person.
Mm-hmm.
There are literally billions of people out there. Like, that's one person, and not everyone is going to like my art. Not everyone is going to like my opinion. Not everyone is going to like my perspective. And that's fine, because all I'm doing is pre-qualifying whether or not this person is someone who is that I'm going to build a relationship with.
Yeah, definitely.
An art relationship.
Clover said, my very first vending thing, I got interviewed by a news station, and I was just talking to him like I would any other person.
Yes, Clover, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
And that's the way to do it. You just talk,
It is people. It's people.
The thing about it is that, like, the other part of it, we like to identify ourselves as introverts or extroverts, and that was one of the reasons that I came up with the name Artrovert, right? Because then it doesn't pigeonhole you into this one way of thinking of yourself. The truth of the matter is that even when, if you identify with something, then you know what your personality is. You're not going to be awkward and weird around your friends, or maybe you are. Actually, you would be awkward and weird around your friends if you were an introvert, and talk and say what you want to say, especially if you trust them, because you're going to have that personality. Mm-hmm. It's when you get out around other people that there's always that fear of judgment and, like, oh, well, I'm not good enough or whatever. And it's like understanding, like, listen, you're going to put your artwork out there and you're going to talk to people, and some people are going to be all hoity-toity about artwork. Mm-hmm. Some people are not. Some people aren't going to even understand it. Some people are going to really love it. Some people are going to love your perspective. And again, it goes back to just being legit and being honest about how you feel in those moments.
Once I had accepted for myself that, like, if you come talk to me about jewelry, like, you're going to get some nerdy commentary from me about rocks and minerals and outer space. Most likely, because metals come from outer space. That's why.
Yeah.
And once I once I wasn't trying to hide that part of myself for fear of not looking professional or whatever, and just allowed myself to totally nerd out. Some people, they don't care, and those aren't my people.
They just, yeah.
But
yeah.
some people are like, whoa, that's stuff I never knew about.
They nerd out with you.
They nerd out with you. Sarah said, I always treat them like my best friend. Then if they focus on anything, I tell my story about the piece and maybe make them smile or laugh.
Yeah, Sarah, I love that. That's, yeah. And it's for us, challenging ourselves, putting ourselves out there and having interaction with people. Really, the challenge is, how can I be, because the wrong challenge is, how can I impress people? Don't do that. You don't know who's going to walk into your situation there. The challenge is, how do I make myself much more comfortable in this situation, right? Because I definitely, if you're going to sell art, you want to get out there. You want people to know who you are. You want to interact with people. If you don't, nobody's going to know you exist. So it's all part of that growth of the artist, of just being a trailblazer and putting themselves out there and creating stuff without giving an F about, whether or not it's popular or not, or whether or not anybody's going to like it. It's just something that you're going to put out there. And it is nerve-wracking at first.
Most definitely. Kelly said, is it more inviting to have a walkthrough booth with things on the perimeter and center, or should it just be perimeter? Thoughts?
Honestly, it depends on the space, Kelly.
Yeah, we've done both. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter which you choose. because this side of it and how the conversation flows is way more important than how the booth flows.
Again, what I would say is whatever's most comfortable for you.
Yeah.
You're the one that's going to be spending the majority of your time in your booth. So make it comfortable for yourself.
Yeah, whatever feels best to you.
Yeah.
Linda E said, I'm such an introvert and I was really nervous coming to your show in Oil City and you guys were so awesome. And within minutes, you made me feel so comfortable. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you, Linda.
Linda, you're awesome.
Yeah,
so,
you were awesome too.
Yeah.
So we just clicked in that way, which was great. Mm-hmm. Allie said, so true. Social media can be very impersonal. I just need to learn how the WordPress subscribe thing works, but everything is possible.
You'll figure it out.
You figure things out in time. You know, we didn't always have all the things in place that we have in place now, but you just build them. Just like a kitchen, as you realize you're missing a utensil and you're like, crap, I don't own a rolling pin or
Indeed.
a pair of tongs.
Yeah.
I need that stuff. Because someone who knows how to use those things comes over and says, you don't have that.
Yep. Or you just figure it out. And, just like for anybody that's listening to this is the first live podcast that is being recorded on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so
with a visual aspect.
With a visual aspect to it. And this is new. And it's just things evolve and change as you go. And really that's how it is. Every show that we did was built on the last show that we did. Oh, we could do this better. Oh, this kind of sucked in the last one. Maybe we should change this around.
Minor course corrections.
Yeah, minor course corrections is the way to go. And really, that's the way that you approach all of it.
Ginger Snap said, in reference to the kids making friends conversation, that adult brains are too trained to know no XYZ. We've seen things go wrong. Remember pain easier than pleasure. Yet kids are still tuned into the yes and the possibilities. So adults
get out of your box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well said, Ginger Snaps. Ariane said that's a great point about not putting armor around you. Think of it as not attaching any emotion to anyone who isn't interested in your work.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I think the biggest lesson that I learned was don't take it personal. It's got nothing to do with you. If they don't like the work, it doesn't mean that the work is bad. It just means that it's not their jam.
Imagine
they're into something else.
Could you imagine if you had to create a piece of art for everyone? Like that everyone that ever walked past your booth connected, and like you'd never have any free time.
And artists, there are a lot of artists that think that that's the way to do it. Like either everybody likes it or my work sucks. And I think a lot of that happens when you first put yourself out there, which is why we recommend get out there, because it's in those moments that you really, really get out there and observe yourself and where you're comfortable in and what the negative stick man is telling you, because the more you do that and the more you don't take that stuff personally or take it seriously, the more you start growing into your own confident self and putting yourself out there.
Allie said, I met a really cool artist at a show who chatted with everyone because she was totally in love with her art. And I learned so much from her example.
You just described the way that we are at shows. Like, we just get really excited.
Yeah.
When somebody comes in and they're looking at some of my art, I can't wait. Like, I'm just kind of standing there like, hi, like, not because I'm like, oh, I want to sell this piece and whatever, but because I'm excited about talking about my art. I'm excited about talking about my art. And that is, mutual excitement.
Mutual excitement,
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of you have heard us say the term mutual excitement before, but it is the other magic ingredient, is to be genuinely into your work, be excited about it, and be like excited to tell someone about it if they want to know more.
And really, that's how you form friendships. It's when you meet somebody and you're excited about the same things.
And they're like, do you like T-shirts? Because I like T-shirts.
Because I like T-shirts.
Hell yeah, I like
hell
T-shirts.
yeah, I like T-shirts. And that's the thing. It's like understanding it's not going to be everyone. People are going to walk in and you're like, I don't get it.
I don't like T-shirts at all.
Yeah, and you'd be like, all right, well,
Great.
we're not friends. don't want to be friends with somebody who doesn't like t-shirts.
Kyle said, I've found that my website has become a great way for followers to keep in touch. I also have a place on my site that says when and where my next booth or appearance will be.
Yes, Kyle.
Good points, Kyle.
Those are very good points. It's brilliant because your website is your hub. You want to make people, that's why I love the idea of having a blog and in updating your website, because a lot of people get really discouraged because, oh, nobody's going to my website and it's been 6 months or it's been a year. And it's like, you got to train people to get comfortable going to your site to find out the information that they want about you. And the way that you keep them, because, out of sight, out of mind, is a blog. Maybe a weekly blog, a monthly blog, whatever it is. That person that is sitting there, clicks on it and says, oh, I wonder what Rafi and Clea are up to. That's why it matters, because it's forming the relationship. If people make the mistake of thinking like, I'm going to put a website together because it's e-commerce and we're, I'm going to sell. And like, you got to remember that anything that you do, whether it's in person or online, is all about establishing that relationship. That's really what it comes down to.
And this is where I'm going to segue into the dark side. Not really the dark side, but this is also why it's important to not do something or be somewhere because you think you're supposed to, but you really don't want to. I think about times in my own personal experience that I was just doing the market for too long and I was ready to move on and I didn't want to be there. And it's not that I was unapproachable, because I always try to, I want to interact with people, but where I wasn't necessarily as present as I would have been years earlier, because I was getting to the point where I was really ready to move on.
Yeah.
So I think about potential collectors or friends that came into the space during those times where I was just really not feeling it. And I didn't connect.
Yeah.
And that it really kind of showed me, like, maybe you just shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Because you love people, but this is getting to be too much of a same routine.
You have to see everything that you're doing as merely a stepping stone for the next thing.
The next thing that scares you.
The next thing that scares you. And that's the problem. It's easy. Like, we did the market, Clea did the market longer than I did. But it's easy. Like, once you start doing something and it's scary and stuff, and maybe a few years go by and now it's comfortable. Mm-hmm. And you're just doing this thing and it's comfortable. And you're not really pushing yourself anymore out of your comfort zone. And it could easily become boring. That's why for some people, maybe not, but I've seen the reason I left the market a lot earlier was because we were doing it every weekend. And I started looking around and I would see people that had been there for 10, 15 years and they just didn't look happy. This was just a thing they did for money on the weekends.
It was no different than going to a job that they didn't like.
And I cannot do that because I did that for years in corporate. The only reason I went to work was because I needed a paycheck. And I was definitely not going to do that with my art career, especially because I knew it was going to have an impact on my relationships with the people that were there. They weren't going to be getting a genuine me. I wasn't there anymore because I was excited to share my art. I was there because I needed to make money that week. So, and it's a very fine line. It's a very subtle and fine line. But there will come that point, no matter what it is that you're doing, where you're going to reach that threshold where, okay, it's this stepping stone.
It's time to level up.
It's time to level up.
And you won't wanna.
Yeah, you're not going to want to.
But you should.
And you might hang on for like 2 years or 3.
Who knows? But yeah, that's a very well said way to say what I was trying to say. So that's good. Yeah. Level up when it's time for you to, and don't let yourself get jaded.
Yes, because that's the problem. You could easily get jaded, and then it's just like you don't want to go to this thing, and you're going because
you're not going to make any connections that way. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to your artwork. It's not fair to the people that are going to walk into your space. Don't be jaded. Kelly said at my next show, I'm going to wear my Nervous Artist t-shirt. I think that's a great thing to do, Kelly. I think that's a great icebreaker. People are going to get a kick out of it. And it establishes like, yeah, man, I'm nervous.
Yep, I'm nervous.
But I'm here.
Kim said, it's easy to hide. I have to force myself to get out there, and it's hard. Yeah, it is. It's, and the only reason that it's easier to hide or stay in, because we still go through that. Like, Clea and I, with as much as we put ourselves out there, there are days where I don't want to go out. I'm like, I don't want people. I don't want people today.
Activate hermit mode.
Yeah, and I love people. I love interacting with people, but you gotta, that's why I say, like, understand where you're coming from. If you're gonna call yourself an introvert, that just means that you need quiet time. Mm-hmm. And that's why in small spaces where there's a lot of people, I'm prepared for that. I need to just step away for just a little bit. Maybe I need to go outside and get a breather, or go off into a hallway where nobody's there and just kind of like, breathe and get myself, and then go back in. And as long as I do that and I check in with myself, I can manage to have a good time. But in the beginning, it was terrifying because it was all outside of my comfort zone. Of course, it's easy to do the stuff that you're used to doing. It's much scarier to do the stuff that you haven't done. But at some point, it doesn't take very many times of doing it. You're going to cross that bridge of like, okay, now this is within my comfort zone.
Yes, you'll cross that bridge, and hopefully there won't be any trolls.
Yeah.
See how I brought that full circle?
And if there are, don't take it personal.
Maybe they'll be well-connected trolls.
Yeah.
Let's see. I wanted to mention also, you guys, that it's no different in the internet land universe.
Yeah.
Like, basically, you want it to be a two-way conversation, and you want to be approachable. So let people get to know you through social media. You don't have to tell them everything about you. We've had that conversation plenty of times too. Let people get to know you. Let them get to know you over a long period of time if that's what they're comfortable with. That's why, you might put stuff out there and you might get crickets for a while because people are getting to know you. Have a two-way conversation. Ask questions in your social media posts or your blog or your videos. Or interact with people who are commenting on your stuff on the internet, because it is a relationship, right? So it's all of that, whether it's on the internet or at a show or whatever.
It's definitely not, and that's where you got to be careful. You don't want it to be this one-sided thing. You want to post for yourself, but you also do want to engage with the people that interact with you. And you also want to interact with the people that you enjoy, like that you enjoy. And
yeah, like comment on their stuff and patron their shows.
But patron their shows, go to their events and stuff like that if you can. But nothing where you stretch yourself too thin. Like do what you can, because most of us that are busy doing this art career thing, we know that people are busy. We're not trying to... the world doesn't revolve around us. We understand that. People have lives.
Most definitely.
That's how it works. But at the same time, you want to give and you want to receive as well. You want it to be a two-way street, because that's how a relationship works. That's why I say, like, when you walk into a booth, you're not going to gain any real art collectors if you're in there, buy my stuff. It's all about me. Buy my stuff. Look at my art. Oh, I'm so mad. Nobody's buying my stuff. And it's like...
Just like you wouldn't be like, be my friend, be my friend.
Yeah.
Ginger Snap said, in my video's closing remarks included, my question for you, my fellow mess makers, and often are the same silly YouTube creator questions you often hear, but even if it's dumb questions, it reinforces that it's always dialogue.
Yes,
and I love that you have fun with it, right? Because if you have fun with it, then it's not feeling forced or weird or whatever.
And it shouldn't feel forced. I mean, and that's the thing, like, when you really connect with somebody, it's not forced. And it's really, with this whole thing, I think one of the most not elusive, that's a big lie, one of the biggest farces that people love to promote with the hustle mentality is that the more people you get in, you got to hook them in and you got to drag them in, right? And it's like, that's not how relationships work. Relationships are never one-sided. There's always a give and take when it comes to relationship. Recently, we had one of my newer art collectors We invited them over to the house to check out the Sunflower House.
Yep.
And they walked around. We gave them a tour, and then we sat there and had a conversation. I was not expecting them to buy or purchase anything. It was just, I want to get to know these people that have purchased my art. They happen to be in town. And it was really nice having that conversation with me. And in leaving, she was like, I think I want to purchase this. And honestly, that's what took me aback, because I was like, and then I had to realize, okay, well, if she wants to buy something, that's her, whatever. But then there were 3 of them, and I was like, is it okay if I gift you one of these?
One of them, yeah.
That's what would have made me feel better, and I knew what would make her feel better is to buy one. But that wasn't the purpose of us scheduling a visit with them. And I think that that's the biggest thing. I've been in a situation in the past where I was inviting someone over with the idea that they were going to purchase something. And honestly, the reason I don't do that is because it was extremely awkward the entire time. And I was the catalyst for the awkwardness. So it's important that like your motivations and that you're having fun, that you're just having fun, that there's no underlying motivation under this thing, that you are just being genuine and real. And this is what I want coming out of this.
Yeah, definitely. The best part about the evening wasn't the selling of the art. It was getting to know who they were as people and realizing, oh, they're dorks like us.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. They're big dorks.
This is
nerds.
This is going to work.
Troy said, make friends and go from there. Yes, Timothy. Yes. Exactly.
Rachel said, I don't understand. The world doesn't revolve around me. Man.
Well, Rachel, maybe around you. Maybe around you.
I mean, our world, our personal worlds do revolve around us.
That is true. Jinja said, there is often a moderate-sized pauses for me to laugh at my own jokes.
I love it.
Big old nerd. Yes, Jinja, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and that's it. Whoever you are, whatever you do, whatever's real for you.
You sound like Christopher Walken there. For
whoever you are.
Whoever you
Now,
are.
if I try to sound like Christopher Walken, it won't happen. But just do that. Just do those things.
Just be Christopher Walken?
No, be yourself. Christopher Walken's already taken.
We should all be Christopher Walken.
Isn't there already a show like that where everyone's Christopher Walken?
But I agree. Although we can't be Christopher Walken, we should most definitely be ourselves, because that's the thing. Any of these interactions is an opportunity for you to meet people that you're like-minded with, especially as artists, putting our art out there, because the art is so personal and is so connected to us that it's ridiculous to think that it's just a like selling a product, like selling shampoo or selling something like that. Because this is something that you created with your own 2 hands. It's not just something that you're reselling or mass producing. And there's something very personal about that. And there's something very personal about someone buying art to hang on their wall. You got to realize, like, this isn't just a decoration. They're taking something that is handcrafted and they are going to put it in their house.
Yeah, it's not decor. You have a relationship with art.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that you are the vehicle for that. You know, it's not your art. It is you being there and that relationship that they've developed with you. I've walked into booths where I saw some beautiful art, and in talking to the artist, I just ended up not buying the art.
That's always a bummer.
Because it was a bummer. I was like, I don't really connect with this person.
Or the artist that won't speak to you at all because you don't look like the demographic that they're going for. Super not cool.
You walk in and they're like, you don't look like you have money. You know, like that kind of thing. And I'm like, that person is there to sell, and they're missing out on the personal connections that they can make with anybody that walks in. So at the end of the day, where do you find art collectors? Everywhere. And how do you get loyal art collectors? You get loyal art collectors by connecting with that individual, by meeting like-minded people and connecting
Same
with
way
them.
you make friends.
Same way you make friends.
Same way you make friends.
Just like Troy said, make friends and then go from there.
Totally.
I love it. And I think that that's it. I want to thank the Rogues so much for being here. You guys are awesome. This new format of doing it this way was great because we got to get a lot more comments and see a lot more of your brilliance come to the podcast, which is something that I really enjoy of doing the live podcast the way that we do. And I also want to thank everybody for listening. I know that we've been a little bit lax on our podcast. I think it was the last week we missed out a few weeks.
Yeah.
But we are here, and we are here to stay once more. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever.
Sure it did. That's
we
the
are
Rafi,
here to stay once more. Yeah.
that's the Rafi way of saying it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you to our Rogue fam for your wondrous, brilliant, awesome questions and comments. And thank you to everybody who is listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
We love you.
Oh,
You're
see,
awesome.
she said it way better than I did. Either way, thank you guys so much. And you want to say goodbye, Clee?
Good day.
Adios.